Hey, I'm Chris and I'm a deadhead,
I'm Scott, and I'm a deadhead too.
and today we're going to be talking about Scott's favorite show.
And that would be so. Before I even say this one's a little more obscure. We're not talking. No one's ever heard it. It has one of the most famous songs probably the Dead ever played, every little bits of music. But my favorite show happens to be from the Olympia Hall in Paris, France, on May 3, 1972. And if you're watching this video, you may recognize that as the show that Jack Straw from Europe 72 came from, and probably more importantly, the China Rider on Europe 72 came from this show. And I would guess that when you get away from Skeletons from the Closet, China Rider from that Europe 72 album is probably one of the more listened to pieces of music that Dead ever played. So I've met
I love
tons
that.
of
I
people over the
love that
years.
China Rider.
Yeah, it smokes. And so before we really get going, I'm just going to say, I already told Chris this. So like last week, we went almost like song by song on Sportatorium show from '77.
And
This
and
show,
I was approximately right. It's got 20 views, so I only irritated like 17 people because I watched it.
um, but with this one, first of all, this is a really long show. So if we went song by song, it would take forever. And second of all, the whole show is really excellent, with maybe one little hiccup during Casey Jones. Um, but it's the second set, and especially the second set jam that weaves in and out of the other one, that to me is just one of the best things I have ever heard in my life. Um, so I'm just going to kind of go real quick through the first set. And if Chris, if you've got anything you need to add, you just speak up. Um, it opens with Bertha. And for my ears and for my personal taste, Bertha is the single greatest opening song that any band ever wrote. Um, with all due respect to Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin or Start Me Up by the Stones or whatever you want to toss in there, when the Dead hit those first few notes of Bertha, to me, it just means it's party time. Um, and like, I know they put it in the second set a lot. I know that they would, kind of throw it in different places. But when it opened the show, to me, that's just as good as a Dead show can start.
Yep. The only thing I would say is lots of times at the beginning of the show, the recording isn't at the quality. You know what I mean? I feel like we lost a lot of good Berthas when
Yeah.
they opened with it. Just me.
I just love it when they open with it. From that, they go to Me and My Uncle. I know, Chris, you dig Me and My Uncle.
Yep,
It's like your favorite of their cowboy songs. Um,
correct.
you got Mr. Charlie, and Mr. Charlie is one of a handful of songs in this show that is, by Dead standards, is a real rarity and is really obscure stuff. It's a Pigpen song. They never played it again after Europe 72. Um, According to Dead Base 9, they played it less than 50 times ever. A few other versions may have surfaced since that book was published, since it's about, close to 30 years old. Um, but still a rarity. You get a nice early sugary. Then you get the song, the first one I really want to talk about, and that is
Well, I'm
one
glad
of
you want to
my
talk about it
personal
because
favorites.
it's one of the few in here that I wanted to talk about too.
So, and that is Black Throated Wind, which I personally think is one of the more underrated songs in the Grateful Dead catalog. I think it really adds to their kind of road warrior mentality. Um, I don't know that I've ever read it, but I've always assumed, and I think this is probably right, that Black Throated Wind refers to the exhaust coming out of the vehicles that won't pick him up, the storyteller. And it's just, it's a song they played it quite a bit up until 74, and then they did not play it again until 1990. They went 16 years without playing this song, and then it was pretty common from 90 till the end in 95. Um, what would you like to say about Black Throated Wind?
So you might recall I went to see Bob Weir in DC
Yep.
um, in 2018, and I have been listening. I've been trying to learn Ripple on the guitar, and this was when I mean, I just bought the guitar, like what, 4 or 5 months before that, something like that,
Hmm.
trying to learn Ripple. And I saw that he played Ripple the next night in Philly. And I was like, oh man. And you said from the show that I saw that you thought the nugget would have been Black Throated Wind.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it that well. I remembered, him playing it that night. And now every time I listen to it, it takes me back to that night. So
Yep.
that's it, and this is a really good one right here in this
It
show.
is. Again, I'm not even gonna play it. You just need to listen to it. You got a nice Chinatown Shuffle, real quick, another Pigpen song. I'm definitely not gonna play the China Rider right now because if any of the 20 people who have been watching these see this video, I would be willing to bet they have already heard the China Rider from this show. Um, but if you haven't, I apologize. You need to go to re-listen right now or Spotify or go to your old tape collection or something because you got to have it if you're watching this video and you need to listen to it because it is fabulous. I believe it's the number 2 version on Heady Versions, and it's just
I just happened to pull that up, and it's number 3.
okay.
But yeah, I really,
I know
it's at least as good as any version out there.
what's so one number 1 is 74,
Yeah, and
and
then
what's the
uh, Veneta.
oh, of course. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, keep going. You've got Beat It On Down the Line, which I've always thought was it was sort of like I was saying about Black Throated Wind. It's just another one of those songs that just kind of adds to the Americana Road Warrior kind of sound. I think with Grateful Dead, you've got a nice He's Gone, another rarity with Next Time You See Me, a nice playing in the band. Which incidentally, if you're watching this, the first live playing in the band was 50 years and 2 days ago. Um, I believe from Port Chester in 71 that just passed. You've got Tennessee Jed, Good Lovin', a really jammed out Good Lovin', a nice Sing Me Back Home. I would say I don't think this one is as good as the one from Veneta, but it's a very pretty version of the song. And then you get
the Tennessee Jed. Just to go back for just a second, the Tennessee
okay,
Jed. I really love this version, and
yeah,
I realized I was listening to. So I knew we were going to do this show. I knew you were going to be talking about this show in particular, May 3rd, 72, and so
yep.
I've been listening to it. And one of the things that really stuck out is Jerry's vocals on Tennessee Jed. I don't know. I just like usually it's Jerry's playing, but in this one, I don't know. It rings true with me.
When you get back, you better butter my bread.
Yeah, he's crystal clear too.
Well, you know, it's like I said, you better head back to Tennessee again.
And they harmonize well in this version also.
Tennessee, Tennessee, there ain't no place I'd rather be. Baby, won't you carry me back to Tennessee?
Yeah, those
So
vocals.
talking about
So it just I always feel like they harmonize. You know, they harmonize a lot better in like 70, 72, right? And then
mhm, yeah,
77, sometimes Donna would throw things, I don't know, but sometimes she would throw things off. And then, I just feel like they kind of peaked in their vocal harmonization early on.
yeah. And I'd have to go back and look because I don't listen to Tennessee Jet as much. I'll have a story for you, kind of like the one you told about Bob Weir in DC. This could be the Tennessee Jet on Europe 72 also. I haven't actually listened to the album in forever because I listened to the whole shows. Um, so I lived in Tennessee for 6 years, and they were not the happiest 6 years of my life. I had a lot of fun and saw a lot of concerts, but I do not have the world's fondest memories of Tennessee. And so I have a tendency not to listen to that song very often. But I was at the first Bonnaroo, and you had Phil and Friends, and Bobby was one of the friends that came out and played. And this is just on a farm, about an hour south of Nashville in the blistering sun in the end of June, in 2002. And they played that song, and it was cool. I mean, so you're just out there, and then they did a nice other one that day. They did one of the best Sugar Magnolias I think they had to have ever played in the post 95 years. But so that kind of takes me back to when I hear that. And to keep going, so then let's see where Casey Jones finishes out the first set. Second set opens with The Greatest Story Ever Told. That's another one that I think, especially in 72, 73, 74, they could tear that song apart. I mean, they could just let it rip. And then you get Ramble on Rose, which was one of the first songs I ever learned to play on the guitar. You get Hurts Me Too, which is another Pigpen song. Very slow, very bluesy, another rarity. And then you get to the part of the show I really want to talk about. And that is Truckin'. It is the second set jam. I think I've already said this once, but if you truly want to appreciate why this show is so great and why I feel like it is so overlooked, I'm going to play a few little snippets here and there of what comes next, but you need to hit play at the beginning of Truckin' and then sit back and listen until the end of Wharf Rat. Just the way, especially when they're on the other one, it builds and then it goes off into deep space. And then from that, it comes back into something like solid, and then it goes off into deep space, and they just keep doing that. And I would have to sit here and play all 60 minutes of this jam straight through for you to truly get it. So you need to go out and listen to it. I believe it's like you've got heady versions pulled up. It's like the number, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, other one out of the several hundred versions they played. And it's from a show that is not nearly as well known as a lot of the other shows on that list.
Yeah, it's top 10. It's number 7.
Okay.
It's number 7, one vote behind. Here, let me see. Have I voted? There you go. It's tied for number 6.
I get on there
in real time. I just tied it for you with number 6. But yeah, it's
never vote on there. But which one is it tied with?
January 22nd, 78.
Okay. Yes, and that's the one where they do. So have you? I don't know if I've told you to listen to that show or not. They go from drums into space, and Jerry does the Close Encounters
thing. I knew that's
and from
what.
That
yes,
they
so
go into
I
Saint
am
Stephen,
familiar.
and it's pretty rocking. It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But okay, so Truckin' itself, I'm going to start playing the music when we get on the other one. It is a typical Truckin' from the era, which means it's just got a really good sound. The band sounds good. It's also in 72. This is when they would do the last verse, and then they go off into a jam, and they come back and do the last verse again. And then after that, they go off into a jam that just goes out into outer space. And oops. So with the Dead, one of my favorite things that the Grateful Dead ever included in their music is the roll. At the beginning of the other one, which they didn't always do, but they did a lot, when Phil would usher that bad boy in, and you just knew, here it is, and I just love it. But the beginning of this other one, he does it over and over and over again. And one of the keys to this show, you were talking about Jerry's vocals in the first set more than his guitar. This jam, the whole band sounds good, but this is a Phil show. This is all about Phil here. So I'm going to just hit play and let it
because again, I've been looking on heady versions and everything. I think you're not alone in that feeling.
Oh yeah, well, and when they come back from drums, it's him and Billy, but he just drives it. And I'm going to just let the first couple minutes of this play. I would let the whole thing play, but so there's your roll. There it is again. There it is again. And you just got the band all over the place right now. changes again. I honestly don't even know when to stop it. It's just so hard to. I mean, you just keep hearing that roll over and over, and the rest of the band just kind of out there. And then they get really spacey. Let's see. Oh, I may have it in the wrong place. Hang on. Shoot. It's so.
No
it's just
pressure.
the whole-
It's all cool,
the
man.
whole- it's just. I'm listening to a different version than I was listening to during the week. Here we go. So this little bit right here, I know you have listened to the versions from Harper and from Fillmore East in 1970 a lot, especially the
The
21370 one.
21370, yeah, that's my favorite.
So what they're playing right here is, in a sense, very similar to the dun 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 dun. But in the 70 versions, it's like so driving and it is rock and roll. And here
Yeah.
it's so spacey, but they're playing the same thing. And I think it's just so cool to hear how in just 2 years this had changed so much. But when they go back into it, right here, it just keeps going, and then they're going to go off into space again, and then eventually it's going to come back in. You're going to get a really nice version of the lyrics, chorus. So then from that, we're off into drums.
That might not be Jerry and Morning Dew, but that's really nice. That is really nice.
And I didn't mention it, but when you listen to it, the guitar in there, when they're playing the riff, the chord, it's got this kind of like it's got a little bit of fuzz to it. And usually, I think when you listen to the Dead, they're pretty clear. And that fuzz it's almost like it gives the song a little bit of a growl. I don't know what else to
Hmm.
say, but it
Okay.
just sounds cool. And from that, they go into drums. I'm not going to play the drums. It's 3 minutes. After they come out of the drums, Phil comes in first. He jams with Billy for a couple of minutes and fun to listen to. But from that, he tries to take them back into the other one, and the band has other ideas. And now it's time to head off into deep space again. And it keeps doing the same thing. It just kind of ebbs and flows and ebbs and flows. And eventually this jam goes into, I mean, what you would expect from like Dark Star circa 1970. I mean, it is, you got feedback in there and it goes out and gets weird.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
from the weirdness, you get me and Bobby McGee. And I'm just going to say it I think the Dead were one of the greatest cover bands of all time. Me and Bobby McGee is not my favorite song in their catalog. It's nothing personal. It's just that I think Janice kind of ruined that song for everyone else. Um,
I dig
it's
it.
just,
I
yeah.
dig their version, and this one is really a good one. It's number three on
Well,
Hetty, and
yes.
it definitely it keeps my attention. I like it.
So it's not my favorite song, but in this particular case, it just comes out of deep space and it is like the sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. I mean, it is so good. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but the end of it, they are singing their hearts out when they get to the end of this song. And then it goes straight back into the finale for the other one. And from that into Wharf Rat. And I'm going to let this play probably until the beginning of the other one. Because when they do go back into the other one now, they finish the song. It doesn't get spacey again. And you can tell that they mean it this time. Um, well, I'm gonna play just the very end of this jam and the beginning of me and Bobby McGee, just so you can kind of hear how it just comes out of nowhere. Okay, I'm gonna let that keep playing if I don't stop it now because it is such a good version.
It's still playing in
But
my
when yeah,
head.
and then you go to the end. I may have to. I didn't get the exact spot on this. So I may have to back it up a little bit. But when they sing the last verse, and then they just kind of just keep going, and from that and the other one, and it's killer. I mean, it's just great.
I know.
Escaping through the lily fields, I came across an empty space. And then exploded at the bus stop in this place. The bus go by and I got on, that's when it all began. There was carbon needle at the wheel, the bus tube never ever land. Coming around, 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 coming around.
And from that, it's into Wharf Rat. I'm not going to play the whole Wharf Rat. The one thing I want to point out on Wharf Rat, I mean, it's a typical version from the time. It's a really nice Wharf Rat. But the thing I love about this Wharf Rat is how it ends. To me, this is one of the greatest hours of music any band ever played live. And they get to the end of this thing, it just ends. They just finish. There's no big crescendo. There's no, hey, look at us. They just run out of music, so
There
they
it
just stop
is.
playing. And it's just, to me, that just makes what has just happened even that much more beautiful. It's just they know they have just crushed every person in that arena. They don't need the big crescendo.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then from that,
definitely.
they go into Jack Straw, which was another one of the first songs I learned to play on my guitar. And Jack Straw will always have a special place in my heart because the first time I saw the Dead in 1995, this is what they open with. And this is the Europe 72 version. And then you get the Sugar Magnolia and the Not Fade Away and the Going Down the Road Feeling Bad back in the Not Fade Away. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it is
Just
a
just to mention
smoky
just to mention
version.
the Jack Straw.
Uh huh.
Now that we have a Wheaton Terrier, I'm constantly walking around the house singing, "We can share the Wheaton, we can share the wine."
That's funny. Um, and so the Sugar Magnolia goes straight into Not Fade Away. And this is an up tempo version of all three of these songs, and it is red hot. I'm sure that the fans were probably expecting Sugar Magnolia to be it. So to get the Not Fade Away Going Down the Road sandwich tacked on the end of it had to have been a bonus. And then they come out for what, of course, is going to be a great One More Saturday Night, because this is, it really kind of made its debut on this tour. And so it was tight at the time. It is the first set of the show is excellent. The second set of this show is, to me, as good as it gets. I think maybe this show gets overlooked because the soundboard didn't circulate as much, probably because it was played in Europe and not the United States. And I do think the crowd, you can hear them cheering here and there, but I don't think this was like the crowd you would have had at, say, the Fillmore or that they had at Barton Hall in '77. So maybe that's why this show doesn't get some of the notoriety as some of the others. But musically, sonically, this show is absolutely amazing. And that's what I've got to say about it. It's just I've listened to this show. I don't even know the first time I heard it. I've had it for years, and I have listened to it many, 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 many times. And if I have an hour, I will sit down and I will hit trucking and just listen to it all the way through. And I've done it
Yeah,
hundreds of times.
yeah.
So,
There's a comment on Hetty versions that says Dark Star 67 says to say the boys were on. Oh, to say the boys were on a roll from trucking to the encore is an understatement.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
and that is so right. I mean, they are just on fire,
and
and it's
for the me and Bobby McGee, it says must eat the whole other one sandwich to fully enjoy this
and again,
beauty.
I agree
Yeah,
completely. That's what I've been
yeah.
saying this whole
I
time. It's
right.
just
You shared with us some highlights, but you have to
the whole
experience
thing
the
is
whole
a
thing.
highlight, and
Yeah,
to truly appreciate the way it just ebbs and flows, and it gets so spacey back into like the other one, and then it goes off again and gets spacey, then back into the other one. And then it gets spacey as crap. And then the next thing you know, it's me and Bobby McGee. And if you notice, like I played that from the beginning. They don't jam out the beginning. I mean, they are playing that song for 5 seconds before Bobby starts singing. And it really, I mean, it just in my mind, I see, the big storm leaving and the clouds parting and the sun coming out. And then you get the little storm after when you get the other one back. But I mean, I just love it.
yeah.
I mean, and I have for a very long time. So
And of course, you shared it with me, and so I love it too. It's not my number one, but it is definitely up there.
yeah. And if
It's one of those hundred shows in my top 20.
Yep. And if I were to pick the show that I most wish I had been at, I probably wouldn't pick this. That's maybe a conversation for another episode,
Yeah,
um, but just musically, I think that I've listened to all of Europe 72, and for my ears, this was the best night of one of the greatest tours of all time. This tour gets overlooked every now and then because of 77, but
oh,
I think it was one of
this
the
tour
greatest
was,
tours
yeah.
ever.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yep. I think I said it last time. 1970 really does it for me. 72 really does it for me. 77 really does it for me.
Yep.
And then I just pull nuggets from the other years.
Yeah. And you and I have discussed it. I have a tendency to visit 74 a lot more than you do. I
Yeah.
love 1974 also. Um, and of course, if anyone's watching this, they played. I mean, I saw them in '95, and I go back and I listen. those shows were really good. They weren't Cornell, but they were good concerts. um, and so I've said it before on these episodes. I If you were fortunate enough to see this band at their height, then I hope you appreciated it. So
I'll bet they did. I
when you
would bet
listen
they
to the
did.
crowd, I
Yeah,
know
I
some of them
know.
did.
Yeah, there was that one, was it Not Fade Away, that I think we were talking about at some point, and it's just the crowd takes the whole show over.
Oh yeah, it's
They take it over completely.
the three what is it 32490 when they come out of Terrapin and they do the wheel and after drums. Oh yeah, that's and they just and the crowd.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the crowd carries it. I mean, it's like the band is gone, and
yeah,
the crowd is just carrying that on and on and on.
yeah. And that was in 1990. That I
Yeah,
mean, and not to take anything away, but I personally prefer 72 or 77.
right.
And here we are talking about 13 years later, and they could still really bring the heat.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's
All
what I've
right.
got for my favorite show.
Hey,
And you're right, I was
enjoy
not
I
able to.
enjoyed the ride. I didn't participate a whole lot, but I should certainly enjoyed the ride.
And I'm
I'd love to
glad.
see your enthusiasm.
And you were right. I was not able to keep this to 15 minutes. It wasn't an hour,
No.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't 15 minutes either.
All right.
All
We will
right.
see you guys next time. All
Thanks,
17 of
guys.
you.
Yes.